Hey, it's the Genesee County Compassion Club show. How's everybody doing today? It is a lovely day here on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2018, and we are in the middle of a winter thaw out. It's like 40 degrees, and I think yesterday was 4, so good stuff.
You know, I heard that we got 30 more inches of snow this year than we did last year. 30 more.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, it's a lot more snow.
It seems like a lot right now because we just got dumped on this last weekend, but, it's been coming and melting, so it doesn't seem like as much as when you see the numbers, because I think we're like well over 60 inches of snow now.
Last year, I think we had 32 total. And so
32 total?
Total last year, according to the graphs I saw.
Oh, maybe from January.
Yeah, from January.
Okay, I'm looking at the season.
Yeah, but it wasn't a lot of snow last year that I recall. I remember one big snow in December, like the 12th or 13th. Because I actually took pictures of it, and then it was gone. Yeah, there wasn't that much. Here and there, you got a couple inches.
No, you're right. Well, it is what it is. I'm glad it's warming up. I know most of you are glad it's warming up, and it's all good stuff. But we've got some awesome things going on. We want to talk about medical marijuana. I want to talk about marijuana in general. Going to let you know what's happening at the Genesee County Compassion Club. Get all things rolling. Glad to be back here in the studios at allpointstv.com. Make sure you check out their other podcasts for other information about Flint and other important issues that are going on in the world. First thing I want to mention, we got our soup kitchen coming up here at the Genesee County Compassion Club. Please volunteer if you can. It is the last Friday of the month. I'll get the date here for you. Give me just a second here. But we're going to be serving at our good old place there down on Stewart, the North End Soup Kitchen. It's part of the Catholic Charities. And we're glad to be a part of that. We could definitely use some fresh faces down there. So if you could help out, we really appreciate it. I know that we're going to be working on trying to switch our time. I know for a lot of you guys that are in the club, Friday is a busy day. It's really hard to get out of there. And so we're going to see if we can get a better day for you. Maybe like a Wednesday or a Thursday or something like that. That might be a little bit better, more conducive to your guys' schedules. So hopefully we can get some more of you guys to help volunteer down there at the soup kitchen. But as soon as I get confirmation on that, I'll share it with you guys and let you know. And make sure you guys show up on the right day. Until further notice, we're still scheduled for Fridays. So it's going to take a little bit of work to get our clientele down there to realize that we're not on the same day anymore. I know that Mr. Matt from Materin Gardens there has built quite the worldwide reputation on his peach cobbler, and it's rather famous in the area. I'm sure we'll get the other people around to switch over to a new day. But at any rate, we love the soup kitchen. We're glad to be a part of it. Thank you guys for helping us do it. Special thank you to Matt and Karen, and let's keep doing it. All right, so sign up, help us out. It's all good. All right, other things we got going on. I want to mention this real quick today. I know it's still off in the future a bit, but we are getting ready for it already, and that's our 420 party. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be big this year. This is going to be our 10th year, a decade of 420 parties at the G3C. Not too many other places in Michigan can say that, if any at all. You guys are the first, you're the best, and you still are. So we're going to party down April 20th. Mark your calendars. You probably already got it marked. It's one of those days. It's like your birthday. It's always going to be reserved. So make sure you reserve it this year. It's going to be extra special, extra fun. You're going to want to spend the whole day down at the club. Okay? All right, let's talk about some issues, some news, get you guys up to speed with marijuana, what's going on with the world. All right? Man, it's good to be back here. John, how have you been doing?
Been really good, man. I was thinking maybe when you're having your 420 well, hopefully maybe that'd be the last snowstorm that happens before that, because usually you have bad weather. A lot of times you have bad weather for that.
Shit about snow on 420.
Yeah, but we have had it. So, yeah. But I remember it was blistering cold. I've been there a couple of times, and it was like I showed up. You had a great turnout, but it was like, God,
April's tumultuous.
Yeah, you'd never know. It's a crapshoot, man. Know.
So, but hopefully it won't be snowing. All right, there's a guy down the road as I speak building an ice igloo. Did you see that?
Yeah.
It's badass.
Yeah.
I gave him the thumbs up. Yeah, I like your igloo. I'm going to sleep in it tonight just for kicks.
We used to, well, we didn't sleep in it, but we used to have one in our side yard, which my brother would make it.
Yeah.
And it'd last like almost the entire, winter season.
Right.
And it'd thaw out maybe in May. It'd probably the last parts of it like dry out. Yeah. But it was like, we used to have like just run an extension cord out there, heat the place up with one light bulb. You take your jackets off inside. It was really cool. Yeah.
Get a bale of straw, throw it down.
We used to have all kind of like stuff out there. My brother used to take a radio out there and stuff.
Yeah.
And, I think he even took a blender out there and made drinks. But
hey, you guys want a smoothie? Well, you probably had slushies.
Yeah, just grab the snow and make sure the dogs didn't go near.
No yellow slushies, right?
it was really no pun intended, you know.
Yeah. All right, let's get on to the news here. We've got some interesting stuff going on in the news, and some of it is kind of rehashed. It's funny, you know. We try to keep up to date with everything, and you know, being in the medical marijuana industry certainly keeps you privy to what's going on if you've got your head above the sand at all. And a lot of these issues are coming to light now that the rest of the world's jumping on the bandwagon. So for those of us that have been doing this for a while, it's kind of old news and kind of like, duh, we told you so. But the rest of the world is just sort of waking up to the reality that, you know, there's lots of problems when it comes to marijuana, i.e. dealing with law. And, you know, we've got a brand new industry here. We've got a lot of people that want to get in on the game, so to speak. There's a lot of patients that are interested in, you know, looking at alternative medications. So there's a lot of people coming to the table on this that haven't been there before. Even still, after 10 years of doing this in Michigan, we still have the green rush going on, if you will. And consequently, like I said, these people have not really woken up to all the different problems that we face in this industry. And one of them, of course, is banking. And there's an article today on MLive talking about the banking issue, bringing it to the mainstream, and I'm glad it's finally having some light cast on it, because it is a major hurdle for not just patients and caregivers, but for business owners and for anybody that's related to this industry. As you well know, when it comes to dealing with banking and medical marijuana, they do not mix. And you know, that can be problematic for all kinds of people, like I just mentioned, you know, and you have to think of other people besides those that are actually just handling the marijuana themselves. This could go as far as to, you know, affect people like attorneys or accountants, certainly suppliers, you know, things like that of nature. Grow stores are another one. You know, when you go to the bank and you say, well, I'd like to open an account, and they say, okay, what kind of business do you have? Anything that is related to money coming from illegal drug sales, which is what they view this as, because they're going by federal law. Any of that money is tied to something that's illegal federally, therefore they cannot touch you and deal with you as a customer. So again, this is old news. We've talked about this extensively on the program. I had a water at one point. There it is. Sorry about that. Yeah, we've talked about this extensively, and it's nothing new. But if you go to MLive, you can read this article. I recommend you would do so. And share it, because it's something that needs to be highlighted and needs to be discussed. Let me get into the nuts and bolts of it. Basically, it's talking about the new program, the Medical Marijuana Facilities Act, and we've discussed this on the show. Obviously, there's lots of fees that go along with applying for this license. There's lots of additional requirements that have to be met, all dealing with the sensitive issue of needing a financial institution to make these things possible. You know, things from simply having a bank account, verifying assets, you know, purchasing insurance policies, having collateral for, you know, any type of other types of loans or anything that may need to be made to get these businesses up and running, to even have them actually qualify under the new requirements and guidelines that the state has put forth. So here we have these guidelines, these requirements, and yet there's no physical way to actually meet them for any of these companies, really. So, and the article, you can read the whole thing for yourself. I'm just going to paraphrase here. This is from Patricia Herndon, who is the Senior Vice President of Government Affairs for the Michigan Bankers Association. Her quote is, "It's not that banks don't want to, it's that it becomes a very significant risk." And the risk factor for the bank is that the bank is dearly holding on to their charter. This is something given to them by the FDIC. It gives them the ability to insure their consumers' deposits. So when you go put your money in the bank, you have a guarantee from the government that your money will be there available for you when you go to withdraw it, up to $250,000. So for those of us that don't have that kind of coin, you know, 250 grand is going to be more than we'll ever need to worry about. If you win the lotto, then you'll understand the problems with this. But for putting any money, even just $1, in a bank account, if it came from medical marijuana, even though medical marijuana in Michigan is legal, if it came from that, it's not allowed to be in that bank. And by having it in that bank, the bank risks losing their charter. So if they lose the charter, you basically have to close the doors. There's no way your bank can operate. There's no way you can even hold money in accounts nowadays as a bank without a charter. And the reason I put it that way specifically is because of the fact there's a lot of folks out there think that, oh, well, maybe I could go get my credit union to jump on the bandwagon. You know, they're smaller, they're board ran, you know, they exist because of their members, kind of a thing. So maybe there'd be a little more leeway there. Unfortunately not. Credit unions have the same type of charter. They have their own style, but it is the same type of charter that a regular bank would have, and it is issued by the same department. So they have the exact same issue at a credit union. They would certainly like to take your business, but there is a high cost of even being able to deal with this, and then also the risk factor, like I just explained. This is not going away. So right here in the article, it goes on to state that the House Fiscal Agency's analysis of medical marijuana in their bill projected that the state would have up to $837 million annually. You know, so that's a lot of money, obviously, circulating around. Normally, that money would be in a bank. It would be in some type of financial institutions, bouncing from one to the next, but it would be in the system. And right now, the way that we have things set up, none of that money is going to go into the system. So there's some quotes in here from different accounting places that are saying they specialize in cannabis accounting. And they're basically stating the obvious. Things like, you know, banks can't, you know, medical marijuana businesses can't write checks. Well, obviously, if they don't have a bank account, don't have a place to store their money, so on and so forth. And there is also reference in here too that the banks may have thought they had an edge in being able to solve this issue here in Michigan. However, due to the recent memo issued by Jeff Sessions last month, they felt that there would be even more reason for pause. It says here, you know, banks that want to handle medical marijuana businesses have to do a lot of due diligence at a high upfront cost to ensure compliance with the Bank Secrecy Act and anti-money laundering rules. And this is another quote by Herndon, the vice president there. So it seems that there may be a possibility that it could be done, but maybe banks won't be able to because of the high cost of being regulated in that fashion. Certainly I can tell you from personal experience, I've not yet found any legitimate financial institutions in Michigan that will handle legitimate medical marijuana businesses. Now,
even does that cover, like, I know you have glass blowers that appear at your events and stuff like that. Some of them are out of town at times. They're also included. They can't have an account like that too, or
oftentimes yes.
Yeah, okay.
Glass blowers, or if you would, head shops, they can also fall into this category, being that they're selling, you know, illegal paraphernalia. So they are affected by this as well. It's a very broad spectrum policy that reaches out from an era where medical marijuana didn't exist. There was no exception for marijuana whatsoever. So any drug money was considered 100% illegal, and of course not going to be allowed to be laundered, filtered, utilized, whatever you want to call it, through any legitimate institution, whether it be, you know, your bank or your local supplier. You know, like these guys are out there buying supplies for their glass shops, and they're having trouble getting the supplies that they need because Customs seizes their orders. We've had issues at the Genesee County Compassion Club many times in ordering just simply patient supply items, nothing to do with marijuana, and simply because of our association or because of the Products Association, it was either seized by U.S. Customs, or maybe it wasn't sent out, or maybe they wouldn't accept our form of payment. I mean, all of these things stem from the federal law needing to be changed and needing to be addressed. We are in a post-legalized era, and we need to act like it. And we haven't done so. And so now we're struggling. It's becoming mainstream. And let me move on here with the article here. It says that other states have had the same problem. Colorado has a few banks that are doing the job out there, but very few. Maryland and Florida, they're stating, have had banks pop up to fill the void. However, they backed right back out. So it doesn't sound like there's anything real solid going on anywhere for that matter. And again, this boils back to the FDIC, which is a federally insured institution. In fact, a year ago, there was a credit union that had formed specifically to handle marijuana accounts in Colorado. And unfortunately, the FDIC turned their application down, again, because of the drug scheduling, the federal scheduling. So, and this was just as recent as 12 months ago. So, and that's from a state that already had legalized adult use marijuana. It's not just medical. So, and consequently, obviously, they're dealing with a lot larger amounts of money than Michigan's even had to face yet. So this is a bigger problem elsewhere than just here in Michigan, and yet they still have not come up with viable solutions. So the article does state. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I didn't interrupt you, but this is my observation too. I can see, I've talked to people about medical marijuana, people who were not on board, who didn't see the reason behind it. And one of the things that's cited, it seems like an unseemly thing to engage in, or a kind of a clandestine thing to engage in. And that, I think that they want that perception in place by now allowing banks to kind of legitimize it. You can just go to the bank and have a bank account for this business. It legitimizes it, and I think a lot of people who are not on board for even recognizing it for medical purposes, they want that stigma in place.
Yeah,
they want that stigma to be in front of people.
Yeah, I think that's what it could be. I could tell you from the financial institutions' standpoints, they're more than eager to take the business, but they know they can't until someone gives them a green light. So the businesses are there, they're waiting, they just need permission in a sense. Excuse me. Michigan lawmakers are looking for solutions to this. Representative Clint Kesto sponsored a bill 5144, which makes refinements to our medical marijuana law. And it did specifically state that Michigan financial institutions or accountants providing services to medical marijuana businesses would not be subject to penalties. But this doesn't do anything for our banking situation. It certainly is a nod that something needs to be done, but it doesn't actually do anything. So it's really that part of the law there, 5144. It has its purpose, but it's not to all of a sudden allow banks the key to just go ahead and start doing things as they want. And I will tell you that this Representative Clint Kesto, it says here from Commerce Township, he's not a friend of our industry. I've seen him testify at the House, and this is not somebody you may think he's on your side, but he is not. He is not a representative, certainly not of patients and caregivers. So even though he was part of the group that got this bill passed forward, I think it kind of is perfect that it highlights the fact that he doesn't know what he's doing. But at any rate, we don't have banking. As of the date of this article, no Michigan financial institution is accepting medical marijuana monies. And the proposal that we have currently from the state, from some of our representatives, one of them being Frank Lucido, is that we would have our own state-run bank created to provide services to the medical marijuana industry and ultimately to the adult legalized marijuana industry as well. There's only a few other states out there that have their own state-run bank. I think South Dakota is quoted in the article as being one of them. Obviously, South Dakota does not have medical marijuana, so I'm not sure why they have that state bank as opposed to just having your typical open market. Obviously, if the state did create a bank for this purpose, it would be in direct competition to any other financial institutions' banking services once they're allowed to come online. So ultimately, it could result in a big problem for the state if they did create this type of thing. It could create solutions, obviously, for the marijuana industry, but it could also create a potential real headache down the road. So we have yet to see. The bill's gaining traction. I think what we need to do is press our representatives at the state level, but also at the federal level, that we need change on the federal level. It is time to recognize that marijuana is being used prevalently throughout the country for medicinal and recreational purposes. and that the federal drug scheduling of marijuana is no longer relevant and has never really truly been accurate in the first place. So we need to have this addressed. I mean, it's been on the pike now for ever since it's been put on there in the first place, quite frankly. But it's really gained a lot of traction here in the last 10 years, and it is time for us to press our representatives, our officials, to change this, because it's just simply archaic. And it has no scientific foundation whatsoever for the way that medical marijuana is scheduled on our current drug scheduling. All right, I'm going to move on here. So that's it. That's the story with Michigan's medical marijuana banking. On a side note, I will tell you that Detroit is up in arms over the Medical Marijuana Licensed Facilities Licensing Act. They don't know what to do. And basically they said, look, we're just going to go ahead and put a 180-day moratorium on anybody applying for a new license, and we're sticking with that. So no action going on in Detroit for the next 180 days. I think the city council wants to figure out what they want to do. Currently, right now, the way they have things written, they did not opt in, and then they did opt in. But they already have a process for licensing current facilities, which would not comply with the new act that the state passed. So it's quite a mess, as to be expected, and we're going to have to wait and see how these things get sorted out down in D-Town. All right, pull up a different story here. I'm going to talk about this one. I thought this was kind of cool. This is about, excuse me, this is about cannabis clubs in Colorado, specifically in Denver. For those of you that aren't aware, Denver, obviously being in Colorado, has recreational marijuana. Anybody can use it as long as you're 21 years of age. Anybody can purchase it, but you cannot consume it in public. So for those people that can't smoke in their homes or choose not to, for the people that are out of state traveling and don't have a home, you can't go smoke in your hotel room. You're not going to go smoke in your rental car. So where do you go? You're not allowed to do it in public. You don't want to get fined, and you want to be legal. That's the whole point of this thing anyways, is to be legal, right? So where do you go? Social clubs in Denver and in Colorado are quite prevalent. They've been all over the place. I've been to a few myself, and they're starting to gain some headway. And in Denver right now, they're looking to actually get, I guess if you call it, zoned for proper use. One of the first ones here that will be properly zoned has submitted their application, and it's basically a coffee shop, if you will, very simply, just a coffee shop. They do not sell cannabis. Their members do not distribute cannabis. They just simply have a place where they can go and consume cannabis and get a cup of coffee or donut, whatever it is they're looking for. But I think this is the way of the future. I think this is an obvious normal progression of our societies. We've had places where you can go and publicly get a drink, places where you can publicly go and gather with your friends, be social, and having a place where these things will go on, and also having cannabis take place and be consumed is only going to be natural. So I think that this is interesting to watch. Hopefully Denver will go ahead and provide licensing for this. It says here, Colorado law does not address cannabis clubs, but it does ban public use, including outdoors. Some cities, unregulated clubs are tolerated, while others operate secretly. So hopefully Denver can come out of the shadows and put some licenses on these things and allow them to flourish. All right. Another side note for Colorado here. Last year, Colorado had $1.51 billion in revenue sales for 2017 in cannabis. That's flowers, edibles, concentrates, and that's it. So, wow, $1.51 billion in revenue sales for 1 year.
What's the population of Colorado?
I want to say it's pretty close to Michigan.
So that's a tremendous amount of money. I mean, Michigan,
I think it's a little less than Michigan, honestly, John, but I think it's close.
I always thought it would be kind of slightly smaller because it's kind of a, let's face it, and it doesn't a lot of people.
Once you get outside of a town in Colorado, you're in the country.
Yeah, you're way out in the sticks. Yeah. But I was going to say, how can they not be? That's got to incentivize these people, for even if they're totally against, weed.
A couple million different.
Yeah, but I mean that's got to incentivize even the most like conservative or reluctant politician. I mean, let's face it, that's what they're driven by is money.
They are
money and power.
Absolutely,
that's all they are. They have no morality. When they ever bring up moral issues, I crack up. No, I don't care which party it is. Yeah,
they're for sale. But I think that this, like you're saying, John, it does get them to take notice. Certainly, with this type of revenue coming through. And hopefully it will get them to actually do something. I mean, we have a tremendous amount of issues right now still dealing with the federal government, Colorado being at the forefront of this, and we need to have our legislators, our representatives, pressing our other legislators and representatives to do something. I mean, if you call up your federal senator, you're never going to get to talk to him unless you pay money. This is not going to happen. You're going to talk to an aide, you'll leave a message. You might get a letter read, but you're not going to have a contact. And even if you did have a contact, it's not going to have an impact. We need to have impact. And a way to do that is, can you imagine you have your local state representatives calling up your federal representatives and saying, hey, look, we can't fix this problem. All of our constituents are telling us to fix this problem. This problem is your problem, and you need to fix it. That's what we need to have pressure from. They start getting those phone calls, and things will happen.
But what I think is this weird, though? If you look at when Michigan voted for medical marijuana back in the early 2000s, it was like, 60-some% of the population voted for it, right? 63%. Yeah, okay, now, they usually say that it's 10% of the population could actually affect social change. Like, the civil rights movement was like that portion of the population. How can this not have that impact on it? I mean, you're looking at if you look at it, break it down by state, and then you extrapolate that into a nationwide, that's got to be almost overwhelming part of the population. If they would say have a democratic process going on here, how can they ignore this?
Yeah.
How could they ignore this?
No, you're absolutely right. The numbers can't be denied. And so slowly the tide is turning, I think, even though they continue to try to deny it.
But you got to hold these people up and say, what is your real issue with this?
Yeah.
The people are demanding it. This is supposed to be a democratic form of government. It's a Republican government with democratic process. Yeah. And the only thing they're going to have to come down to is going to have to shamefacedly admit it's financial and somebody's paying them off not to let this happen.
Yeah. Well, and we're going to see that happen here in this next year. The coalition to regulate marijuana as alcohol or like alcohol. They've done the job that's going to be on the ballot, but there's opposition that is forming right now for fighting this to try to get people to vote no for adult legalized use. And they're going to have all kinds of different talking points that they're going to come up with to justify why you should vote no. And what we need to do is combat those with facts, not emotion, not flying off the handle. We need to combat those with facts. So when they talk about things like increased drug use among teens or increased fatalities on the highway due to drug use, we need to be prepared to show them that the numbers they're using are not accurate, that they're not relatable, that they're irrelevant, and that they're outright wrong. And when we do that, that's how you really will confound and destroy your competition, because you can't deny facts. Like you said, John, you know what I mean? It is in your face, and if we can do that in a professional manner, the opposition won't have a chance, because there really is no good sense as to why was this ever made illegal in the first place. It was a racial, monetarily motivated move that our country chose to do, and it's wrong, and it doesn't make sense. So when we still have people, 30, 40 years later, trying to sound like they're the pipers of prohibition, it is laughable, and it is easy to dismiss them, but we need to have a real conversation with them and treat them professionally as well. And we can do that by having a candid debate and being ready to present real facts. And you'll end up walking away from the table with them looking silly if you do so.
I can say right now,
otherwise you're going to look like the crazy cannabis activist guy. Nobody wants that.
See, I can say right now, though, I can say on memes on Facebook, if you want to go by that, the Libertarian Party's put a lot out there. And they're actually doing little tidbits of facts.
Sure.
And about the war on drugs and stuff like that. And you're dovetailing this sheer fact that people used to smoke pot back when they're in the 60s, 70s. They enjoyed it. They really didn't have any real health issues stemming from it. Why can't we legalize it? When you look at that, you look at this anecdotal information, you look at the clinical studies, you look at the political climate, and that's where I think the people should abandon the two major parties and start looking to alternatives such as the Libertarian Party, and because this is how you affect change, because you got to leave those people, those button down people who have always wanted, just that's all you want to be in public office. That's what you deal with now. These people, that's all they've ever put themselves forward towards. You got to leave them in the dust. This would be actually more for the people. Now I expect the fife and drum to come up right now, but I mean it would actually become more for the people, because that's what the people are mandating.
That's right.
It really would.
This is kind of reiterating that, and I want to share this with you guys. There's a lawsuit that has been filed in federal court. And let me get this up here. This is from ABC News. You can catch this on New York Times. It's a pretty big deal. Lawsuit, 5 plaintiffs in the lawsuit claiming that the government's decision to classify marijuana as a Schedule I drug is irrational, unconstitutional, and motivated by politics, not hard science. So follow with me. Government lawyers will argue Wednesday before the U.S. District Judge in New York that the law is well grounded and that the case should be dismissed. The lawsuit challenges the listing of marijuana as a Schedule I drug. The federal government says drugs under the classification have no accepted medical use, blah, blah, blah. The lawsuit names the Department of Justice, the Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and the DEA as defendants. The plaintiffs include a former NFL player and co-founder of a company that sells hemp-based sports performance products, a nonprofit organization called the Cannabis Cultural Association that helps minorities benefit from the marijuana industry in states where it's legal. Another plaintiff, a 12-year-old Alexis Bortel, who takes marijuana to control epilepsy, and a 7-year-old Jagger Cotti, I'm not sure how you say his last name, but a little 7-year-old who uses marijuana to treat a severe neurological disorder called Leigh syndrome. So these are the plaintiffs, and each of them have their own reason as to why, i.e., for this lawsuit. And you can imagine their reasons. Obviously, some of them have to deal with the treatment. Some of them have to deal with lost business opportunities. Some of it has to deal with discrimination and unfair treatment. And it really covers a lot of the different facets of the unfairness of marijuana being scheduled as a Schedule I. It needs to be changed. So there's a lawsuit going on. There are proposed bills going on about this subject. We need to have change. It's clear. But this lawsuit is gaining traction. Like I said, it was shared on New York Times, ABC News. It's a big deal. It was originally filed back in July, and now that Jeff Sessions' memo, which came out 2-3 weeks ago, came out, this lawsuit has now become a hot ticket item, and people are concerned about it. People are thinking about it, talking about it, and I think, like I mentioned on the show here a couple weeks ago, the memo from our Attorney General may have actually provided us a positive push forward, even though the memo itself could be viewed as a negative outcome. Sometimes it's one more straw on the camel's back, so to speak, and this puppy's going to break eventually. So this is the plaintiff. They say that marijuana doesn't meet Schedule I requirements of having a high potential for abuse, has no medical use and treatment, no possibility for safe testing, which is completely preposterous. The lawsuit notes that in 2014, the Justice Department and Treasury Department's network issued guidance for how banks could provide services to marijuana that were legal under state laws. It's really irrelevant. So these are their talking points. On one hand, the federal government wants to put people in jail. At the same time, the federal government has a policy to encourage banks to go into business with cannabis companies. This is by their attorney. They're attempting to reserve the right to prosecute people for engaging in the very conduct that the federal government has encouraged. I wouldn't really say that the federal government's encouraged banks very much to get in on this business. There have been a few offshoot memos here and there, but overall their policy has been much more of a deterrent than anything else. So, but at any rate, this lawsuit is gaining traction. I personally do not expect it to have a dramatic effect. I do not think the outcome of this is going to be that the judge would tell them to reschedule our federal drug policies. But it does bring to light the inadequacies of this current protocol. It's out of date. It's inadequate. All right, let me move on here. That was the story on that. I want to move up to our neighbors up north in Canada. Canada, likely this summer to become the second country in the world to legalize marijuana use and the production of it. Uruguay being the one that beat them to it about a year or two ago. But at any rate, Canada's getting ready, and the companies are popping up all over as far as the green rush goes. Let me pull this up here for you. One of the companies, and I reported on this, I think about 3 years ago, company, let me get their name here for you, Canopy Growth Corporation. They're the company that purchased the old Hershey's factory in Ontario and have basically revamped it, and turned it into a medical marijuana processing facility. They are obviously hoping to expand and looking to capture a portion of the new market that will be coming online here in the summer. I wanted to share some of the information from this article. I thought it was interesting. This is on leafly.com. You can check it out. Some of the facts from this company, and this is the one again that runs in the former Hershey's plant. Again, I'll give you their name, Canopy Growth Corporation. Okay, inside their facility, workers wear masks and they're pretty high tech and so on, but they process nearly 60 kilograms of marijuana a day. That's quite a bit, 60 kilograms. They employ over 350 people, and they're currently saying that right now, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be redundant, but 89 medical marijuana producers have been licensed to operate by the Canadian government and will be able to sell cannabis to retailers for recreational consumption. So obviously a big market here in Canada. And I also noticed that in the article, Canada is already exporting cannabis to other countries. Believe that. So it's bigger than just Canadians consuming cannabis. They're actually exporting this to other countries for medicinal purposes, of course. So, but yeah, that's what's going on in Canada. That's just one example of what's going on in Canada. I would say that, this seems like a pretty positive thing on one side. You got 300 jobs that may have not had jobs previously. You got a company that's growing. There's opportunity there for investors and for the company itself. So those are all good things. But the problem is that this is all at the expense or on the necks of the grassroots activists that got these laws passed, the caregivers that were already in operation long before this law got passed and before the Canadian government got involved. So it's been kind of ugly. There's been many different dispensaries that have been raided. Meanwhile, companies like this continue to expand. So it's sort of a double negative. And I think that's something we need to be keenly watching here in the States to ensure that we don't do the same thing to our own population. It's not fair to criminalize one group for doing something while we commend another for doing the exact same thing. We need to have fair laws for everyone. I know it's a dream world I live in, but you got a dream, right? All right. Okay, one more article I want to share with you guys before my voice gives out. And I apologize, I'm still getting over a cold. It is the flu season, and I'm just kind of wrapping mine out, I guess. But I know a lot of you guys have had colds. Make sure you stop over at the Holistic Center if you get a chance. Pick yourselves up some of that colloidal silver. The stuff's amazing. Or some of the spray vitamins that we have over there. Really do a lot to keep you from getting, I won't say that you're not going to get sick, but it might prevent you from getting sick. It may also help you from getting as sick as you could be. A lot of friends right now have taken trips to the hospital for pneumonia, bronchial issues. I mean, they're running rampant right now. So please take care of yourselves. Eat an orange, and just be careful out there. Okay, wash your hands, stuff like that. All right. But anyways, one more story here for you guys before I take off. This is Berkeley, California. Obviously, Berkeley's been a pretty liberal area for a long time, and they're not one of those places that's afraid to stand up and do something different if they feel that they need to. Now, Berkeley, in response to Sessions' memo, and probably also in response to the immigration things that are going on and so on, Berkeley declared itself a marijuana sanctuary city. It's more of a gesture than it is anything else. But at any rate, I'll get to the article here. This is from Fox News. Berkeley City Council voted unanimously to become a sanctuary city for legal adult use marijuana. The resolution prohibits city agencies and employees from assisting in enforcing federal marijuana laws and share information on legal cannabis activities. Let me read that to you again, because that's pretty significant. The resolution prohibits city agencies and employees from assisting in enforcing federal marijuana laws. That's pretty significant. So here's a quote. It says, "I believe we can balance public safety and resisting the Trump administration," Mayor Genesee said at Tuesday's council meeting. The resolution is a message of support to the cannabis industry and one of resistance to the federal government, the report said. The DEA and federal prosecutors often rely on local agencies to provide information and manpower for their operations, the Chronicle reported. So it looks like this city will not be providing support for their operations if it has to deal with marijuana. So there you go. And you're seeing this more and more. You know, Michigan's an example of this as well, with us going ahead and passing our own law, even though we didn't have it done on a federal level. You know, it's not as extreme as what the city of Berkeley is stepping up and doing, but we have seen numerous cities across the state pass their own decrim measures, Flint being one of them. And so this concept of people saying, you know what, to hell with the feds, we're going to do things our way because we're the ones here that are affected by it, is becoming more and more popular. You know, not that we want to encourage a separatist society, but I think we do need to have more congruence and more, a better representation, really, if you will, at the federal level. It seems that, you know, John mentioned and alluded to money and corruption and so on, and it's rampant. We all know that. And unless our political officials can start to see that and start to answer to the people that they are really accountable to, you're going to see more of this happening, where local areas stand up and say, you know what, we're tired of having you mess up our stuff, and we're tired of asking you to change things to be sensible, so we're just going to take care of ourselves and screw you. You know, unfortunately, that's what happens when people don't cooperate or come to a medium, and we need to have pressure at our federal level. So I know it's been the message of today's show, and I know it gets old, but it's something that we need to still have change. So until it changes, I'm not going to stop talking about it, and you know, until people start getting respected for their personal choices and stop being abused for them, I think there's cause to continue. So, all right, that's all I've got for you guys this week. Thank you for joining me. This is the Genesee County Compassion Club show. Please make sure you join us down at the club. We're always looking for friendly faces. Come on down if you haven't been there in a while. The food is absolutely amazing. Next door at the Growing Concern, I hear we're going to be getting a foosball table. Someone mentioned they're going to be donating a foosball table. Not to hold them out there or put them on the spot, but heck, it might already be in there for all I know. I know we've got the ping pong table. It's rocking, so you can come down and have a good time. Always good times happening down at the club. So come on down and join us. We'd love to see you. Make sure you mark your calendars for 420. Join us at the Soup Kitchen if you can, and take care of yourselves. All right? Get healthy, stay healthy, and enjoy the thawing out. Thanks for joining me this week. Please make sure you have a wonderful Valentine's Day. Kiss and love the ones that you hold special in your life today, because you might not be here tomorrow. All right? Thanks, guys. Have a great week. And this is the Genesee County Compassion